Hey guys, and in this video what we're going to be showing you is how to edit a raw photograph. So if you go out of the day and you take your SLR with you, most people just shoot in Jpeg format, but if you shoot in a raw format then you get a lot better detail and you can edit your images a lot wider too. So first of all, just double click on it and it'll open up in Photoshop as camera raw, and it should appear like this. If it doesn't, then comment below and I'll try and see if I can figure out what's going on. But anyway, our first box here is white balance. Now of course, if you take a photo in JPEG, you cannot adjust the white balance afterwards. So it's pretty handy to take it in RAW just in case you mess it up here. And if you drag the bar to the left or right, you can see the tonal differences from the warm colours to the cold colours. So you just want to position that roughly where you think's about right, or you can just leave it as standard, or you can use the presets here as shot, auto, daylight, cloudy, shade, tungsten, fluorescent, flash, or your custom setting. Always customly do it because it's always better to do it that way. Your tint, well, I never really touch this, but it just adds a tint to the photograph. It's pretty much self-explanatory really. I can't remember where we had that, so it looks about there. There it looks about right. Now your exposure, it's going to brighten up the image or darken the image. It's more or less the same as the brightness, but it just gives that bit more detail to your image. So what we're going to do is we're going to shoot up the bar to the top, and you're going to see the differences that change to the image. As you can see, it's well overexposed now, and it's underexposed there. But you can see there's a good detail of sky in this picture. But we don't really want it that dark, so what we're going to do is we're going to move the exposure roughly round to the middle somewhere. I tend to use a bit of a brightness in the exposure and darken it off in the brightness, as you'll see in a moment. Now the recovery, what the recovery does is it brings the detail back into the sky. So for this example we want to push the recovery all the way to the top. And then the fill light basically brightens the shadows in the photograph. But I rarely touch this, so don't really go above 10, but it's always nice to just add a little bit. Now the blacks just really add black to the picture in the dark areas. Depending on what sort of situation you've got, sometimes it looks good and other times it ruins the image. So we're going to add about a 25 on this one. Now brightness, pretty much know what that is I suppose. Brighten or darkens the image. So we're just going to put this around about 55. Like I say, do it a little bit bright because when we open it in Photoshop we're going to level it off, which you'll see in a moment. Okay, now our next bar is the contrast bar. So it adds contrast or takes away the contrast from the photograph. Now depending on which situation yet again you are in, you may want to reduce the contrast, or you may want to hide the contrast. It's entirely up to you. As it's your photograph, you want it the way you want it to look, so just fiddle about with it, or maybe you might like both, so just save it at both, but we're going to put it around 28. Now the clarity, this adds detail into the image, but does look quite silly if you have it too high. It's better off zooming into the image so you can actually see the differences in the clarity. So now if we move the bar, you'll see the considerable amount of difference. It adds sort of a blur and takes away the detail from the image. I'm not really too sure why the clarity is there, but we're going to move it up about 3, just to add a little bit of detail. Vibrance, well, it's the saturation more or less of the colours. You can have it black and white, or you can wham it all the way up to the top, but normally just leave it in the middle. And the saturation, well, that just more or less does the same as the Vibrance really, but it just does a little bit of a better job, and it adds a bit more colour to the tones as well. But we're going to leave that on 0. So if we zoom back out of the image now, we can see what we've done to it so far, and it looks pretty good, but it's not quite there just yet. In the second bar with the detail, we can change the sharpening of the image. I very rarely use this because I think the Photoshop does a better job. And the last one is just camera profile, which you set on the camera for the colour. But we're just going to leave that the way it is. So if it looks alright, you can crop it if you wish. That's entirely up to you. But I am just going to leave it In fact, we might as well just crop a little bit now. In fact, we're not going to bother. Okay, we just want to leave it at that for the moment. So if you're done, click Open Image, or you can save the image if you wish to do so, if you don't want to edit it in Photoshop. But of course, we want to edit it in Photoshop, so we'll just click Open Image. Okay, so now the image is open in Photoshop. Now we can do a lot more things to the actual image itself. Normally, the first thing I do is I level the image off. It just gives that detail back into the dark areas. And all the bright areas, such as the clouds, it just brings the detail back a bit more. Similar to the recovery, but it just does that little bit of a better job. Now you can manually select the sky if you wish to do so in the selection tool and go around the sky. Like so. As the computer just adjusts to it. But we're not going to bother with that right now. I'm just going to show you a quick example of what it does. So all you want to do is you want to go to Enhance and then Adjust Lighting and Levels, or you can click Control and L for a shortcut. And then from here, the left bar, which indicates 0, darkens the darkness of the image, so the blacks get darker. Of course, it ruins the image, in my opinion. Depends really what you're looking for, as the sky there looks very good, but you can't see any of the detail in any of the rest of the image. So we're just going to leave that blank. The left one basically does the same thing, but with the bright areas of the picture. But the middle one is what we're interested in, because if you drag it to the left, it brightens up the bright areas, and if you drag it to the right, it darkens off dark areas. So it's pretty handy to know this one. And normally I'd just drag it to the right ever so slightly to around about where the picture looks not too bad. As my computer has absolutely stopped working. We're going to go back on that now. Okay, in the bar where it's got 1.00, we're just going to move it to the right a bit until you see the details. You can see the detail coming back in the sky, but we don't want to go too much because then we're going to lose the detail in the dark areas already. This is why I say if you quick select it, then this won't occur. But we'll go on to that in another video. So we're going to drag it down to about 79, something around there. Obviously your image will be totally different, you might not even want to adjust it at all. Or maybe you want to take it to the other way and lighten up the image. So we're going to click OK on that. Secondly, what I'll do, which does not come with Photoshop, but is Topaz Labs. I'll put a link into the description of their programs. I find them very, very good. And also Imagenomic is okay too, and it's got a Noiseware professional program. But we're going to use the Topaz Labs because this is a lot better. Bearing in mind you do have to pay for these, so it's going to set you back quite a few dollars or pounds, and I mean quite a few in the hundreds. So we're going to go to Topaz Labs and we're going to click Denoise. And it's pretty much self-explanatory. What it does is it takes away the noise from the image. Of course you're losing detail while doing this, but if you just adjust it slightly, it can benefit you. Okay, so now the program is loaded. You can see it's zoomed into the center of the photograph, and the little red box, as you can see here, indicates where we are zoomed into the photograph. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom out just a fraction and find somewhere where it looks a bit noisy. Okay, the road is a perfect example. So if we zoom back in to the road, the picture's not of the best of detail, I must admit, but you can see where the noise is indicated on the photograph. So if we go to the right hand side at the bottom, in the noise reduction section, it's got the overall strength. If we drag the bar up, you can see it disappear. Drag it all the way, oh, it's gone completely, but you're losing detail in the image straight away. I normally don't go anywhere near past the quarter mark, but that's entirely up to you what you want to do. which looks pretty decent at the moment. The other bars I don't tend to bother with. I'll go on into more detail in them in another video. But the detail recovery is something else I want to cover in this plugin. And it's add grain, of course, if you want to add grain to the photograph, which we don't want to do in this case. Reduce blur in the image, which sharpens up the image. And recover detail, which brings the detail back from what you've lost while getting rid of the noise. Of course, it adds a bit of noise back, but it does do a decent job. So once you're satisfied with your photograph and it looks pretty decent, and there's just a bit of noise or none at all, whichever you decide, or whether you decide to add noise, it's entirely you. You just want to go ahead and click OK. Now this procedure can take up to 2 minutes, depending on what computer you use. As you can see, it's not taking too long on my computer. But of course it does depend on your processor speed, whether it's quick enough. If not, it could take quite a while. But nevertheless, it'll do the job. You just got to give it a few minutes. And we're nearly there. And it's done. Now the last thing I normally do to my image is crop it if I decide to. And because I'm using a laptop here at 16:9, I normally take quite a considerable amount out of the image. But of course, if you're using different screens or whatever, then you may be different. But if you're uploading your images to the internet, it's probably best to crop them at 16:9, as most people these days look on laptops or widescreen devices. So once we've got the image where we want, you just tick the little tick, and it will crop it for you. And that is it. All you've got to do now is go to File, and there's a numerous amount of ways that you can save your photograph. You can click Save for Web, which allows you to select the resolution of your photograph, and many other different objects. But all I do is just click Save As. Click wherever I want to click. So desktop, Jpeg format, Photoshop format, whatever you wish to save it as, that's your choice. But I just go to Jpeg, just name it London Jpeg, something like that. I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you want to name it, that's fine. And just click Save. Then there'll be another extra box that comes up for the quality, and basically it'll improve the quality of the picture, but it'll also increase the megapixels of the photo too. Anything above 1.5 megabytes I think is really ample, unless you want to blow it up onto a big print. Then anything above 1.5 meg is perfect, but we're just going to save it at 2.1 meg for the moment. So now it's saved, just go to the directory where you saved it. As you can see here, London Eye, JPEG 12345, which is the image we used. So if you just want to double click on it, it will then load. And there you go, there's the image. So that is how you edit a RAW photograph, make it a JPEG, and add a little bit more detail to it too. If you ever go out with your SLR, take them in RAW. You'll definitely get a better shot, and you can edit them a lot more without destroying the photograph. Bearing in mind the files are a hell of a lot bigger, and if you don't have Photoshop, then there are other programs that can edit raw photographs. But if you don't have Photoshop, then I truly recommend you get it, because it will help you, and your photographs will look a hell of a lot better. And the Topaz labs as well, I'll put a link in the description to their software. It is very expensive, mind you, but it is very good. And there may be other alternatives that you can get for noise programs that are free, but they'll probably put templates and silly stuff over your image, and you don't really want that. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this series, then give it a like, subscribe, and comment if you wish. If you got any questions, then inbox me, that's fine. Not got a problem with that. I'll try and help you as much as I can. Until next time, thanks for watching.